I'm going to start us up then.
Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the program. I don't feel like that camera's even on me.
Yeah.
Is it? It looks like it's going over there.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning. It is Thursday, the day of the seventh game. That's for you hockey fans. I find hockey to be almost unbearable to watch in that it's just too exciting. For people who don't get it, I mean, just try. That if you care about the outcome of it, I mean, things can happen like bang, bang. It's so fast. It's so nonstop, unlike baseball, football, even basketball. In that regard, it's more like soccer, right? Games that just don't stop. You just keep going. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, my God. So anyway, I find myself listening more than watching. I just can't. I don't think it's good for my blood pressure. But then again, life doesn't seem to be good for my blood pressure these days. Oh gosh. So I just said to Celine, I don't know where to start, but that's what I always say, right? I don't know what. Okay, let's just start tiptoeing in here. I never thought I'd say it, but I do join apparently a growing chorus of people who you wouldn't think would feel this way. Feeling sorry for Sean Spicer.
Really?
I just want to, for those of you who don't know, I do. I feel sorry for him. Sean Spicer, the president's press secretary, is along on this European tour, and we know he's got a rough job, and we know he has a crazed boss. But the one thing, and he apparently told a lot of people, he was so excited about going because he was going to see the Pope. He is a very, very much a practicing Catholic. He was widely mocked, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, on Ash Wednesday for showing up as a talking head on a CNN show, perhaps. I might have networks wrong, with his ashes on his forehead. I mean, that's how much of a Catholic he is. He goes to Mass. He cares about it. It means something to him. So meeting the Pope, being at the Vatican would be huge. And he was excited and telling everybody. And then when Trump went to the Vatican, he didn't take Spicer. I mean, he took a lot of other people, but he didn't take Spicer. And a lot of people in the press corps who probably don't particularly, I don't know, they might like him as a human being, but they're constantly jousting with him, posted things saying, "Aw, geez. I mean, come on." And they said it showed how mean and how petty Donald Trump can be. I'm not sure that does Donald Trump worry about who exactly is going with him? I guess he would make the call. I don't know. So there are people today, I just wanted you to know, feeling sorry for a guy we usually want to punch Sean Spicer. I do. I feel sorry for him. So, where do we go from here? Speaking of punching, I guess we'll go there. So there is a special election in the state of Montana going on right now. And this is to fill a House seat. Montana is one of those big, huge states that has more cows than people. It is so unpopulated by humans that it has only one representative in the House of Representatives. It has 2 senators. Again, this shows, I don't know, I think the Founding Fathers were a little out to lunch on this. So Montana in the Senate has way, 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 way too much pull. If you're a Montanan and something has come to the Senate, you've got pretty much twice the representation of you or me. So they have one House member, and the reason they have the special election is because their only House member was plucked out of the House by Trump to serve as his Interior Secretary. This is the guy who rode into Washington on a horse. Just saying. So there is this special election. Montana's as red as a state can be. Trump, it's not as red as a state can be. I want to backtrack on that because, believe it or not, one of its senators is a Democrat. Now, actually, a Democrat from Montana would not be the same as a Democrat from New York State, let's say. There'd definitely be more conservative Democrat. But Montanans do elect Democrats. Their governor is a Democrat right now. But they went overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. So Trump's candidate, the Republican running, and I'm sure I'm just telling you stuff you already know, was charged last night with assault. The night before his election, which he's expected to win, a sheriff who contributed money to his campaign arrested him on assault charges. Misdemeanor assault charges because the damage he didn't rise to felonious assault, but it's a charge that does potentially carry a prison sentence. And the reason the sheriff, who probably is voting for him or has already voted for him because they have the ability to vote well before Election Day, could in no way not charge him, because the assault was heard by many of us on news last night. The reporter that he body slammed to the ground because he was asking him a question he didn't want to answer had his tape recorder on. So you hear the altercation, you hear the violence, you hear the pow, and despite all that, this jerk, who I should name Greg Gianforte, or Gianforte, I don't know whether they still do the Italian pronunciation there in Montana, he put out a press release describing what had happened. And in the press release they put out, it's just one effing lie after another. That the reporter was aggressive physically, that the reporter refused this, did that, blah, 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 that he tried to grab something and inadvertently they both fell to the ground. They dared to say this and make up a whole story when the reporter's tape recorder, which was recording reality, that troublesome thing called reality, says otherwise. And to add to it, there were 3 other people in the room. 1 reporter, a producer, and a photographer from, get this, Fox News. They were there setting up to do an interview with this guy. The Fox News reporter, a woman whose name I can't recall, I don't know that this was on Fox, but she put out on social media her eyewitness account of what had happened. And her eyewitness account was an account of unprovoked physical assault on a reporter asking a question. So the sheriff didn't have much choice but to charge the guy. You got 3 eyewitnesses. You've got the tape recording. You've got a reporter with busted glasses. And then you have this total lie put out by the campaign. Now, this guy was assumed to, he's going to win. Everybody, this is one of those. Here's what troubles me. The DNC, or I'm not sure exactly what body this would be, the Democratic body that decides what races they're going to pour money into, often overlook races, especially now in this who knows what will happen kind of time. Seems to me it's the Congressional Campaign Committee. They're not putting much money at all behind this guy's opponent. Bernie Sanders has been spending some time in Montana with this guy, trying to help him. But the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee has been noticeably absent because they say it's really tough for this guy to win. That troubles me. I think you fight every fight because you never know what's going to happen. Look what's happened here. People are going to the polls now. Some people, this might have turned them around. I don't know. Republicans seem to like people who punch reporters. And this guy is a Trump clone. And this guy, swaggers. And he's running against a Democrat who's what? A folk singer. A true kumbaya type, walks around with a guitar. But this race should have been a runaway, and some of the recent polls show it relatively 49 to 43%. So I think it is conceivable that this could be won. And I really want to say to the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, wake up, you friggin' fools. Bernie Sanders had this one right. You go after everyone. Everyone. You got more than enough fired up Democratic voters in the country who, if you ask, will give money for campaigns like this that you failed to advertise to them, right? So you have all the big newspapers in Montana. Are there big newspapers in Montana? I believe there are. There's one in Billings. Name another city in Montana. Billings. Billings. I ain't going beyond Billings. I can tell. I can't come up with one. 3 newspapers that had endorsed the Republican withdrew their endorsements last night. So this guy is now, the voters are voting there. Here's the problem. It is assumed that as many as 40 to 50% of Montana voters have already cast their ballot before this thing happened last night, because they do have early voting. In fact, more than half of the Montana voters requested absentee ballots so that they could. 70% of those that requested those ballots have already been returned. So that's actually an argument against early voting. That people vote before they really see the campaign totally play out, before they perhaps can get the full measure of the candidates. Something to think about. So we'll see. Odds are still that this SOB, who just, it's essentially like sort of cold cocking somebody, who was asking him about the CBO report about Trump Care. But, you know, when you have a president of the same party who, we were talking about this yesterday, weren't we? Come to think of it. I was talking about the fact that that reporters now are fearful in certain situations that they were never fearful of before. They're actually fearful, and with reason, of going up to an official, elected or otherwise, and asking a question, which is what the guy at the FCC did the other day and ended up getting pinned against the wall by 2 security guards for doing his job, for exercising his First Amendment rights. And now you got this guy. This reporter was from The Guardian, who, could have sustained a lot more damage than he did for simply doing what reporters do. Trump has actively been trying to help this guy. If you're a Republican in Montana, you've been getting, those robocalls saying things. This is Trump. You got Trump in your ear saying, if you don't vote tomorrow, the liberal Democrats running for Congress will decimate and dismantle all that we have done. What the hell have they done? The one thing they managed was putting that jerk Gorsuch on the bench. Democrats can't undo that. Can't dismantle that. That's a life term. What else has this Republican do-nothing, inept clown car Congress done? Nothing. So, anyway, there you have it. And Fox News, I've heard this morning, like on their morning show, were reporting this and disregarding their own reporter's eyewitness account, and instead treating it. I really can't even. I hear myself talking and thinking that can't be true. One of your own reporters was an eyewitness to the assault and has had the, I guess, courage, working where she works, to say, no, this Republican candidate just friggin' slammed the guy to the ground. He was just asking a question and he wasn't being aggressive. Fox and Friends this morning were pretty much siding with the Republican candidate's version of events, which were so absurd and so patently false that even his friend the sheriff had to charge him. I don't think Fox should exist. Of course, if we took it down, something worse would. I've learned this much. I've learned for living scores and scores of years. Don't ever say it can't get worse. Don't say it. In my youth, I recall saying it many times. Can't get any worse. Can't get any worse. I remember saying it when television news started going bad for employees. That can't get any worse. Nah, they can't. Oh, God did it. I got out before it totally. I was commiserating with a local anchor last night that I bumped into. Boy, did it get worse. That's all I can say. It can always get worse. So speaking of Fox News, Sean Hannity is now under assault from the same folks who helped take down, God, I forgot his name there for a second, Bill O'Reilly, by going after his advertisers. And some of Hannity's advertisers have already pulled out. They're not the biggies. And lists of his advertisers are all over social media. And it is essentially a list of any American business and corporation you can think of. So, I mean, if you're of a mind to, you can join the crowd. I have, as a consumer, I do practice that kind. I spend my money where I feel comfortable spending it. If I know a retailer or a service is actively working against my best interest in the political realm, or in, on social issues or whatever, I don't spend a dime there. But these organized boycotts of people who say things that other people don't like, I get a little queasy with. I have been, I guess maybe because I've been on both sides. I understand the impulse to do it, and I see how powerful it can be. But I was on the receiving end of such a campaign. Back in the day, God, it must have been like 25, 26 years ago when my radio show was on WTAE. And I'm sure I've told the story a million times, but I was driving home one day, and my car was stopped on the corner of Craig and Forbes in Oakland, right in front of the art museum, right? And that's right near Central Catholic and Oakland Catholic, the girls' school. And quite clearly, school was out, because all the kids were there were a lot of kids congregating around there at that bus stop. And I was looking at them, and one thing struck me. And what struck me was that the girls from Oakland Catholic had their skirts rolled up so that they were, there was not, I'm telling you, they weren't more than 3 inches long. Right. And the Central Catholic boys were obviously, they were appreciating the show. So the next day on my radio show, I started talking about seeing this, my observations, and about the strange sort of disconnect between what the Catholic Church, how parents send their kids to Catholic schools because Catholic, and I don't know that I really started, off on wasn't a rant, it was just a stream of consciousness thing. And then I remembered Frank Zappa wrote a song called Catholic Girls. And I didn't remember more than 5 words, but I did sing them, something like Catholic Girls at the CY, CY Catholic Youth Association? Or CYO, Catholic Girls, see how they go, Catholic Girls. And I started doing some of that. Well, all I can tell you is all hell broke loose. You would have thought I had clubbed baby seals, drop kicked kicked puppies that I had. I mean, I was used to incoming, right? Incoming. I was used to it. It's part of my job. Never, because it was a organized campaign to cost me my job. Editorial by the bishop in the Catholic paper. I think that was Whirl. I can't quite remember now, Cardinal. I remember sitting out at an event in Market Square shortly after, just an event where we were passing out stuff, and it was, the talent from the station had to be out there mingling. And I heard an older woman say, "Oh, look, there's Lynn Cullen." And her friend, the other older woman, said, "Don't go near her. She hates Catholics." And they went after my advertisers. Every single one of I had advertisers. Every single one of my advertisers was contacted by a lot of people. And they were told that as long as you continue to advertise on Lynn Cullen's show, you don't have any of my money. Well, these were small. These are, a shoe store. These are local places. This is a Catholic town. They hung with me. I was blown away. Not one advertiser bolted. But that was a real threat to me. Because if advertisers drop you, the guy who was employing you at some point is going to say, "What's the point here? She's supposed to attract advertisers." So I have this I don't know. I don't know what to tell you about it. I don't know what to tell you. Been on both ends. I like to, as much as I know about a company or a store, I like to spend my money where I don't feel dirtied. Mostly I like to spend money in locally owned ma and pa outfits. Like a pet store. I mean, like where you get your pet food. There's all those big boys, right? Petco, Pet Mart, Pet this, Pet that. And then there's these little people who set up shop, who tend the store, who you interact with. Those are the people to spend your money with. Yeah, you pay a little more. You usually do. You definitely do. But man, do you feel good. Just saying. Yeah, the only people who pulled from Hannity, as far as I know at this point, is Cars.com and some other thing I never heard of. So, not the biggies. And he's got biggies. And this is a result of the Seth Rich stuff. And he's still at it, by the way. He's still talking about the story, but not saying the word Seth Rich. God. Oh, what a vile human being. Oh. You can tell I need a break from the usual today. I really do, pretty much. I can't keep it up. Although, I guess a big story today is that the Europeans and the Brits are really giving Trump an earful, and the British are enraged that I guess some intelligence information about the Manchester bombing has appeared. There's a big color photo on the front page of the New York Times today of some remnants of the backpack that the suicide bomber was wearing. And the Brits considered that absolutely top secret information. And yet the British people had never seen that photo. I woke up to it this morning. And there's outrage in the UK about it. And that would have had to have been leaked to the Times by somebody in our intelligence. So this will add fuel to actually Trump's fire that there are people in our intelligence that are working against us, because the Brits are saying we might not share much anything with you anymore if you can't keep it to yourselves. You got a leaky vessel over there. Also, word that when Trump returns, they're going to see a lot of people fired because they have apparently ferreted out some of the leak sources. And there's going to be a potential bloodbath upon his return. Oh, and did you see the attorney he got to help him? He only, he trusts so few people. This is a guy who's handled a lot of cases for him in his business interest before he was president. This is the guy who handled the Trump University, remember that case, which obviously they lost. This is the guy that went, went after an author who wrote a book about Trump and said that Trump's wealth was, had a number on it, whatever. And Trump took such offense at the number, saying that he was much richer than that, actually sued the guy for underestimating his wealth. And this attorney, who he now wants to help him avoid jail as the president, is the guy who lost that case too. This is a guy too, this Mark Kasowitz, who I guess has done quite a bit of work for Russian interests. I don't know if I was under a cloud for potentially consorting and colluding with Russians, if I would have as my attorney a guy who colludes with Russians. I don't think that seems like a real smart idea. And a guy who's not schooled in this kind of law. The story yesterday, I forgot to... This is about the cows. I told you I had a cow story. Do you know, what do you think of cows? Cows, when you look at them, seem so... What? Give me an adjective. Cute and dumb. What? Cute and dumb. Is that what you said? Yeah. Cute and dumb. Yeah, okay. They seem sort of placid. They don't seem smart. I don't, why that is. I mean, why are we saying that? I don't know. They just stand there chewing their cuds. I was once attacked by a herd of cows. It was a nightmare that to this day is vivid. Who knew? Did you know cows could be aggressive and that cows could run fast? Although that day, man, I outpaced them. I did outrun them. I couldn't have done that today. But when I lived on a pig farm in Mazomanie, Wisconsin, I lived in the incredible old stone farmhouse on that pig farm, and the farmer who owned that farm had his farm just up the road a piece where he kept his dairy cows. And there was this beautiful field across the road from my house, and this hill that I would sometimes walk up and then be able to see for miles and miles around. It was just a lovely place. And in fact, when I was first hypnotized, and they told me, the hypnotist said, now, just go to a place where you always remember feeling calm, placid. And that was the place I went, that hill. So one day, me and my dog, I had a collie at the time, decided, well, I don't know that the dog did, but decided we'd go up the hill. I crossed the road and slipped under the fence. There was no gate that I recall. I had to sort of shimmy under the fence. And usually it was not populated by cows, but there were, I'd say, about 5 or 6 cows in the field. And I thought, that's interesting. But I started walking with my dog toward the hill. It was a little bit of a trek away. And the dog didn't bark at the cows. I didn't say anything to the cows. I might have said, "Hi, ladies, how you doing today?" I mean, I don't know. And all of a sudden, I don't know what the hell happened. These cows turned and started after us. I couldn't believe it. It was like being attacked by baby seals. I thought, what? And I ran. Boy, me and the dog, we ran. And managed to get, because the cows did not go up the hill. It was a pretty steep thing. We got up the hill. I didn't mean to tell that story. But that was startling. I later told the farmer, I said, "Hey, those cows, they chased me. They scared the hell out of me." He said, "Oh yeah, they were freshening." I said, "They were what?" He said, I put them there, they're freshening. I guess that meant they were, I'm trying to remember what that meant. That they were pregnant? That they were something. So that they were temporarily culled from the rest of the herd. I don't know. I guess freshening cows are like a little out of sorts. I don't know. I'm just saying. And he said to me, dumb as hell. He says, all you got to do is hit him right between the eyes with the 2x4. And I thought, Jesus, God, Lord. So when I read this article, I actually thought of him because I cannot imagine that farmer doing what these farmers do. And this was in the Wall Street Journal. And apparently, a lot of dairy farmers are doing this. They have figured out that a real happy cow, in other words, a cow that is not being hit between the eyes with a 2x4, that a really happy cow gives a lot more milk. And that means a happy cow makes you money. So there are a number of farmers. There's even one whole cooperative of dairy farmers in, I think this is in Indiana, over 100 farms. And they all agree to this kind of program of making sure the cows do not get stressed out. And you can imagine, you wouldn't mind being a cow in one of these places. I mean, American cows are already among the most productive in the world, apparently. And they're already yielding 40% more milk than they did just 20 years ago. But people are saying that's not just because of selective breeding and efficiency of the operation. It is also a result of farmers realizing that a happy cow is a cash cow. So listen to some of this stuff. They've installed automated back scratchers in barns. And the barns are such that the cows are not confined like this guy's were. They can roam around, and they say there's actually a line. They stand in line waiting for the back scratcher. Hey, Millie, don't think you've been there enough? Let me in. Some of these farms have a robot, like an R2-D2 size kind of robot that does laps around the barn, making sure that every cow has food all of the time. They go to be milked when they want to be milked. This is not how it was done when I was on that farm. Oh, my God. So there's these squads of robotic milkers. And when a cow wants to be milked, she walks into this pen with the milkers. And mechanical arms set to work on her, cleaning, massaging, and milking her udders using lasers and brushes while music plays. Man, that's a fur piece from Willard Brockman's farm back there in Mazomanie, I'll tell you that. Okay, we got Audrey on the phone. Hello, Audrey.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
I just wanted to tell you, from my experience with my oldest friends, freshen means having a baby, a calf.
That's what I remembered. So they were pregnant cows.
Right.
And maybe pregnant cows are a little more skittish or something. Well,
yeah, it has to be all hormonal, you know?
Yeah, that's
But
right. That's right.
Ago,
It's hormonal.
Years ago, my mother and I, my little daughter, we were taking a ride through the country, and we looked in this field, and we saw these cows, and I said to my mother, look at what's hanging out of her. And here we stayed there for about an hour and a half watching this cow give birth.
Wow.
And, yeah, the farmer must have known that she was going to, deliver soon, and he apparently saw that we were standing there for so long, and he came out and then wrapped a rope around the calf's hoofs or legs and pulled this calf out. But it was something really neat to see.
I bet. I mean, I sat enraptured in front of my computer when that giraffe was being born. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. It was just amazing to watch.
Flopped out onto the ground.
I know. I thought, my God, what a drop that poor thing's going to have.
But you talk about coming out of something warm and going into something cold and then getting knocked on the head.
Yeah, right. Hey, welcome to the world.
Right.
Well,
this is only the beginning.
Well, thank you, because that was my recollection. They're freshening. Yeah, they were pregnant. Right. Hey, thanks, Audrey. Great to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, wait, though. Now, Chuck's got a different read. He says, cows freshen after a calf's birth. Freshening occurs when milk production begins. She's then a wet cow as opposed to a dry cow, a non-milk producing cow. Although nature intends the milk for the newborn calf, that's not the typical human use. So you're saying they just had their babies. Their calves. Well, it had something to do with pregnancy. They're freshening. And Milt, as usual, is right on it. Cows freshen after. Okay, so that's it. Audrey and I stand corrected, but freshening is after the birth, when milk production begins. You both sent me the same thing. After 48 hours, regular milk production starts and the cow and calf are separated. Well, so these cows had just been separated from their calves. Maybe they were really pissed off. They were unhappy, and they were hormonal. I think Audrey hit it on the head with hormonal, because normally you can walk into a field with cows and you don't have to worry about being attacked. The only other animal that sent me running was a swan. And I really took off that time. That was one snapping, furious, flapping creature. Don't mess with Mother Nature. Leave those guys alone. Although I want to thank the blue jay, who I saw happily scarfing up one of my cat's latest vomits the other day on the patio. Well, that's recycling. That's just wonderful. I gave the food to my cat ate it, my cat regurgitated it, the blue jay comes along, blue jay eats it, who knows what happened after that? I don't have a clue. Oh, and I just have to tell you one more thing. There is actually, the Hare Krishnas have a farm in Pennsylvania. Do you know about that farm? The Gita Nagari Yoga Farm in Port Royal, PA. They've gone well beyond automatic back scratchers. These guys, normally a cow, once they stop producing milk, they become hamburger. They're slaughtered. And the Hare Krishnas over there in Port Royal, PA, nope, they let their cows live their lives out to old age. So if you want to be a cow, that's where you want to be. Although you have to listen to that Hari, Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, which would drive me nuts. But that's, a cow probably doesn't care. And they spend their day, it says here, in the pasture pushing around multicolored beach balls. And here's one of the Hare Krishna, the farm manager. He says they're very peaceful and they have a transformative effect on the consciousness. Oh, there you go. It's the first slaughter-free dairy in the United States. You can buy those cows' milk straight from the farm. Get this, $14 a gallon. Slightly higher than, but those be some happy cows. Hare Krishna cows. What else we got here? It's going to be one of those days. I'm sorry. Think of any other stories I can tell you. Well, here. Beth wants us to get serious again. Beth says, the moment that Perez was named the DNC chair, I knew it was going to be the same old in the DNC. Although this technically, Beth, is not what I said, is it was the Senate, it was the Congressional Democratic Committee. They got another committee, and they were not funding it. I don't know what I think those are separate entities, but okay, to continue. This guy is Ed Rendell Light. In watching the DNC chairmanship debate, both he and Congressman Ellison were not impressive. So Beth didn't like either of them. And those are the two now that are running things. They showed they lacked the skill set to deal in this modern day of changing politics. My wife and I both believed if the Democrats had a shot to rewrite the narrative of what the Democratic Party is, they would have had co-chairpersons, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Pete, I don't know how to pronounce it, and good heavens, I don't know how to pronounce this either, and Jemu Green, whoever that is. I'm sorry, I don't, Beth, pay as much attention as you. The South Bend mayor, coming from a military background in cybersecurity, and Ms. Green, who had great connections and understanding of the 20-somethings in urban communities. I truly believe these two candidates, seeing the influx funding to ACLU, Planned Parenthood, PFLAG, would have had the strategy we are fighting for every vacant special election seat, unlike Perez's standard policies. If we can't win, we won't fund it. With all the DNC money flooding into the John Ossoff campaign, that's the one in Georgia, if he loses, and loses to a very flawed Republican candidate, we need some serious changes at the top of the Democratic Party. A party we are looking to, begging to fight for us. Well, you know, the same place that told me that the Senate Democratic Congressional Committee wasn't sending much help to the Montana race, specifically mentioned that they were focusing on this Georgia race. And I say, you can't do two things at once? That was my reaction. You got to fight on every front. So I went to a Planned Parenthood event last night. It was just an educational event where Kim Everett, who spent some time with us a few weeks ago, Kim Everett, where she really laid it out of how bad things are right now, not just at the federal level, but in Harrisburg. I mean, the threat is so great that it's mind-boggling. On the 100th anniversary of Planned Parenthood, think of those 100 years and all the crises and things that went on, from women getting the vote to the Great Depression to on and on and on and on, world wars, Korean wars, Cold Wars, the women's rights movement, the civil rights movement. Planned Parenthood stood. It's in danger, in true danger. One of the things that gladdened my heart was there were some young men there. And I spent a lot of time talking to people who lived in Congressman Murphy's district, which has been gerrymandered into this absurdity and almost certain Republican seat now. Never used to be that. So that was Doug Walgren's seat. He was a Democrat. He got knocked off by a upstart named Rick Santorum. And when Rick Santorum knocked off Walgren, that's it. That was the end of that area, Mount Lebanon and beyond. I mean, it goes all the way out to God knows where. You can't even imagine if you ever look at a picture of that district. The DNC does not look at that as a flippable district. And I'm sorry, but I beg to disagree. I know I would go door to door for a candidate that can knock him off. But the thing is, I know there are two people looking at running, and both of them are just exceptionally stellar candidates on paper. I mean, you can't imagine how good they are. But they're not quite ready to jump in because they know the DNC doesn't have their back. It really is amazing. Because Democratic voters are fired up. Fired up. And Republican voters, I gotta think they're not. If anything, they're in hiding. They're deflated. They're not fired up. For the DNC not to go after every single one of these races is insane. Just saying. Chuck writes, Chuckles. Chuckles the he was a dolphin, not a porpoise. Sorry, Chuck, I didn't mean to snap at you. Chuckles. Would take exception to your comment that the only other animal to give you a problem was a swan. Also been listening to you for over 20 years, and I don't think I ever heard you say you lived in a stone farmhouse on a pig farm. Sounds lovely. Oh, God, was it? It was unbelievable. I lived on that right after I got married. It would have been like 1972 to maybe 75. It was 30 miles south of Madison in a town called Mazomanie. Used to call it Mazomania. Mazomanie. And right near where Frank Lloyd Wright used to spend his summers, Spring Green. And he had a lot of buildings there. But we lived in this massive 2-story stone farmhouse with a screened-in porch along the full length of the house on both the first and the second floors. I mean, I bet our rent was like $200, $150. We were living on nothing. I was a secretary making zilch. My husband was a law student, obviously making nothing. And his tuition was being paid for. He had a grant from the Danforth grant, the people who own Ralston Purina. And that was our income. And we were able to live out there. Oh, my God. It was something. I learned a whole lot about how tough it is to be a farmer. Boy, did I learn a lot. And the farmer's mother, Della, lived on this tiny little house next door to our big one. And she was incredible. And she had a pet pig. This is when I found out if you let a pig grow instead of taking those little piglets and sticking them in those damn trucks that would come and shipping them down the highway to the Oscar Mayer plant in Madison. They get huge. But how smart they were. How smart they were. Della always says, smarter than a dog. Smarter than a dog, cleaner than a dog, nicer than a dog. She loved her pigs. And she helped me plant my first vegetable garden, which I planted right next to the pig pen, which turned out to be, oh my God, the runoff from the pig pen was like, everything I planted was like 10 times larger than it was supposed to be, but I couldn't figure out where the zucchini were. I said, look, Della. I remember one day saying to her, Della, look, where are the zucchini? I've got all it is a bunch of leaves. She must have thought I was the stupidest human being in the universe. She picks up a leaf, and under the leaf is a zucchini that was probably 70 pounds. I mean, it looked like a submarine, and there were about 500 more of them. I actually thought that zucchinis, what I thought zucchinis grew straight up. I didn't know from nothing. But yeah, I loved it. That was when the Watergate hearings, that's where I watched the Watergate hearings, in the living room of that house. So that places it in time, right? What a great place. So, we did it without talking about much of anything. I love that. I hope you did. I needed a break. I just need a break. So, I'll just leave you with 2 words and a prayer. Same thing. Go, Pens. That's it. Tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.